All right, welcome to the second episode of the Brew podcast. Usually I'm with Rixie, but he has some stuff going on right now, so I'm with an editor of Cream City Central and podcaster of the Lambo Lead, Josh. How are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing well. How you doing, Jimmy?
Can't complain. It's almost Friday, Memorial Weekend. It's always a good time.
Have to love that.
Yeah. So this is your first time on this podcast. It's only the second episode. I don't even think I've told you this yet. Me and Rixie, we started this podcast so Rixie's a buddy of mine I went to college with. The reason it's Corn Brew, he's from Nebraska. I'm from Milwaukee, so we did corn and beer and just kind of threw it together.
I,
Came up with Corn Brew, so
I love that. That's a great name.
I wish I could take credit, but he did all of that. But we finally posted our first episode. We literally tried to record 3 times. The first one, he was with me in the room and we were talking and having a good time. And then I went back and I went to listen to it before I posted it. And I realized that just because I hear him in the same room doesn't mean that the microphone picks him up. So it literally was me talking to myself for 2 hours with long pauses. So
oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, you would have been really impressed. So yeah, we are here today to talk about Game of Thrones. Obviously, one of the most popular shows. I think I'd put it in top 5 most popular shows ever. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. If not top 3, if not top 1.
Mm-hmm.
This show has changed the way I've looked at social media.
Yeah.
Because the reactions afterwards, during. I used to sit on Twitter every Sunday night and dread Game of Thrones because I didn't watch for the first 7 seasons on TV.
Okay.
And I would just be like, why are so many people into a TV show? It's just a TV show. I would
Yeah.
have friends who would cancel, gatherings or hangouts to go watch Game of Thrones, and I'm just like, you can watch it an hour after it airs on TV. And then all of a sudden I watched all 7 seasons in about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally understand why everybody was so adamant about watching Game of Thrones every Sunday.
It's honestly, I try to think of shows like my favorite shows, and that ranks definitely top 3. But because then you think of people, or I was just thinking of like HBO in general. They have Sopranos. People say is the best TV show ever. I haven't watched that. That's on my to-do list this summer. And then The Wire they have, which they say most people say that's one of the best TV shows ever. But you'd have to think. I don't think though that had like the global phenomenon that Game of Thrones had.
No.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people. It's a super good conversation starter. If I'm in an awkward situation, the first thing I go to is, you a sports fan? If they say no, I say Game of Thrones, and then it's usually a yes. So this last season, we had to wait 2 years for it, which sucked. The wait was the worst part. And I think, honestly, that was kind of, we'll get into the reactions of like social media and stuff, but I think that might have been a little bit of their downfall, is we had to wait 2 years. So people you have high expectations to begin with, and then you add on a 2-year wait. And I think that just adds on to it. Like, you're waiting 2 years, so you're like, this is going to be the best show ever if I have to wait 2 years for it to come out. But
yeah, I totally see that. I mean, I didn't have to wait 2 years. I only had to wait about 6 months, which was awesome for me. But if I would have had to wait 2 years for this, and then all of a sudden it goes that fast, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah. Did you follow TJ Lang on Twitter and his oh my gosh.
That was one of my favorite things I've ever done on social media, was follow TJ Lang while I watched Game of Thrones. because I would sit there and scroll through his Twitter feed, and he would be like, oh my gosh, I hope the Hound kills his brother in the end. And I'm going, dude, you just wait.
I know.
You just wait. And it's so much fun to follow people like TJ Lang. Just because what he meant to the Packers, obviously, and then he's just a fun guy.
Yeah, no, I was cracking up whenever he'd be like, "Oh, Joffrey's such a dick. I hope he dies." And then I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be so happy pretty soon."
Oh, so happy.
No, so before we jump into this final season thing, the worst. So I started kind of like you, I didn't start from the beginning. I started season 4. Um, long story short, I ended up in college having like a 3-day hangover that I needed to just lay in bed. It was a hot mess, and I was like, time to start Game of Thrones, and I just binge watched it. And I watched the first like 3 episodes, and all suddenly I turned it on, and it's Jaime and Cersei standing next to Joffrey dead in the whatever temple or whatever. He's
Yeah.
dead, laying there, and I was like, when the hell did he die? And
Yeah.
I ended up jumping to like season 4. I was so pissed. I jumped ahead
Wow.
and I had no idea how I did that. Somehow on HBO Now, I clicked the wrong buttons. It ruined a lot for me, but it also gave me hope. I was watching the whole seasons. Whenever he was being a horrible human, I knew he was going to die. So it wasn't as bad.
Yeah, I think if you jumped ahead and you saw that, you'd be pretty shocked and upset, I think.
All right, so let's jump in. We'll start with, let's go before we get to the final episode. How did you like the final season?
The final season, I thought it went, in the majority of people I saw on social media thought the same thing. It went way too fast.
Yeah,
Sure, the episodes were an hour 18, hour and 22 minutes, but you had to have at least 1 or 2 extra episodes thrown in there
yeah,
because when you go from the Battle of Winterfell, which was probably almost the height, obviously it wasn't the ending, but the height of excitement in
yeah,
that, oh my gosh, like the Night King is at Winterfell and everybody is there and this is going to happen. So you have that whole situation, and then you have one build-up episode to episode 5 where Danny just goes mad. That was just too fast for me. Those were 2 major storylines that needed more time to build, and it was just too fast.
yeah. Because if you went to any other season like that would be 2 seasons on its own. Like you'd have one season leading up to the Battle of Winterfell, and then you'd have one season leading up to Danny going crazy. And then I honestly think you'd even have another season of like what's going to happen now that she went crazy.
Right. It's like there's just I'll get to this later, but I'll just say that there's so many questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you had to pick your favorite parts of this season though, what would you pick?
Oh man, my favorite part of this season. Oh, yeah, this was a great season. Don't get me wrong. My favorite part of the season, I think, was Arya killing the Night King. That shocking. It was exciting. I still have questions about that, but that was probably my favorite part. How about you?
Um, I would have to go with the Hound and the Mountain finally fighting.
Yeah,
Like they're so since season 1 they just hated each other, and it build up, and then the Mountain turns into some creepy creature. I don't know. It was cool because we finally got to see his face too. Which honestly I didn't know what to expect, but when they knocked the helmet off, I don't know. It just ended perfectly because it wouldn't have been realistic for the Hound to just destroy him.
right.
Um, I don't know. I don't think it could have ended any other way between those two, of him just getting whooped and then last second tackling them through and then both falling to their death. I don't know. I think that was the perfect way for that battle to end.
It was, and the fact that I can't remember the term for it, but obviously the Hound had a fear of fire. We saw that in the Battle of Winterfell,
Yeah.
and when he obviously plunged his brother, the Mountain, off that ledge into the fire, that just goes to show how much he hated him. And it was a great ending. I think it was the most fitting ending of the entire show.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
2 storylines.
I did not think of the whole fear of fire thing until right now either. So I'm glad you brought that. I did not even think of that. That's a good ass connection.
Yeah, because the mountain shoved the Hound's face in the fire when they
Yeah.
were kids,
Yeah.
and so ever since then he's been devastated.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. One other thing that I love that Brienne, I don't know how to say her name.
Bran, yeah,
She finally got to hook up with Jaime. That was a great she became a knight. After she became a knight, she finally got a little bit of loving. That was a great part of the season for me. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of this season was so. But the thing was, it's 6 episodes. It's so action packed. Like you don't know. It just I don't know. Sometimes all of it ran together for me.
and the thing is, you said action packed. There's so many things that happened that people were actually upset when for example, Tyrion in the last episode was moving the chairs. People were upset when the writers had the characters do random things that actually didn't matter because they wanted those seconds, even the seconds that took place that were quote unquote wasted, to have something meaningful put into them because so much happened that more actually needed to happen. You know what I mean? There's so much going on that the writers, I think, should have added. I can't say that stuff. They needed another episode. Really, they
Yeah.
just needed to put more detail into more episodes.
Yeah. At least another episode. It was, and that's the thing too, is it goes back to the wait, is we waited 2 years for 6 episodes.
Yep.
And then somehow it was still rushed. Where I'm like, if you had 2 years to prepare for this, you would think, I don't know. But a lot goes into the show. They have a ridiculous amount of work and special effects, CGI, and all that stuff. But I still can't get over I waited 2 years for 6 episodes.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
All right, so let's jump. Before we go into what we hated about the final season, or hate is a strong word, but there's some things that I did hate. So before we jump into that, let's go to the final episode. So like you said before that, she becomes the Mad King. Daenerys becomes the Mad Queen. Excuse me. Burns down the city, goes crazy even after they rang the bells and everything. So now we come to the aftermath. Jon Snow, Tyrion are walking through the devastation. There's that burned, super creepy guy that walks by him. So going from there, like, how did you feel about that final episode?
Yeah, that final episode. So at that point, when Tyrion was walking past that guy who was all burned, I kind of was just like, I looked at the clock and there's about 40 minutes left. And I'm going, how is this going to end in 40 minutes? I mean, nobody definitively has the throne at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrion starts walking up and he's like, I'm just going to go talk to her. And he walks up behind Dany as she's sitting there preaching to the Unsullied and the Dothraki about how they're going to go liberate everybody else, aka just kill everybody that would stand in their way. And he drops his pin that obviously has the hand on it because he was the hand of the queen at the time.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I thought she was going to kill him on the spot, first of all.
Yeah.
And then when Jon starts walking towards her, I thought he was going to kill her on the spot.
So did I. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen in front of everybody.
But from that point on, I was kind of like, well, what's going to happen here? Something has to happen. You know, this is the last episode. They can't just say that they're going to make a whole nother season. And then Dany starts walking away. Okay. And I'm going, okay, where is she going? And then Jon follows her. And she just walks up to the throne by herself in the same, I would say, the same surroundings that she had in her vision several seasons ago. It might have been season 3 or season 7. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But she has a vision of herself in King's Landing with ashes around her. And she starts touching the throne. And then Jon walks in. And I'm going, well, where's Grey Worm? Where's an escort to keep her safe when literally the throne is its most vulnerable position? Because there's nobody around to protect her. Like, she could be assassinated at any time. And then when they start making out, I'm going, there's no way. Like, Dany and Jon are going to take the throne together. She literally became a liberator to a tyrant in like 3 episodes. And I hated that, honestly. Did I see it coming? No, but does it make sense now? Sure, because I think it was her dad was the Mad King.
Yeah.
So sure, she goes full Mad Queen, burns everybody. And I guess my reaction is when he stabbed her, I wasn't shocked. But when Jon was casted out to the north, that surprised me because he was touted as the savior. You know, his real and the thing that really bothered me was they continued to call him Jon Snow and his real name was Aegon Targaryen. So he's not a Stark, he's a Targaryen, and that bothered me that the writers didn't make point of that the rest of that episode. Yeah,
it was honestly. So I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast when he was talking with Cousin Sal on it. And when it was just thinking about Tyrion going up to the queen, and all of a sudden he takes off his pins and throws it, and all of a sudden everybody stops. Like to me, like obviously it's I don't know. There's no jumbotron. There you got people way in the back that has no idea what's going on to see this person take a pin off and throw it on the ground, and then all of a sudden it's dead silent. It's like some of those little things where I'm not nitpicky, but once someone points it out, then that's what I think about. Or how awesome all these people can hear her, even though she's way on top of this giant thing and shouting out to people, screaming and yelling and jabbing their spears on the ground. Like there's no way they could have heard her. That's one thing that annoyed me. I was like, I get the whole gist of this, but once somebody pointed it out, I was like, yeah, that's pretty unrealistic.
Yeah.
But then I think we're also watching a show with dragons, so I can't really be too picky about realistic and unrealistic.
Yeah, that's true. And the one thing I'll give the writers kudos for is the way they handled those dragons throughout the season. Because most shows that have dragons, the show is just constantly centered around the dragons because they're dragons.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones really did a great job of not going over the top with it. Because any show that has dragons, it can get really annoying real fast.
Yeah.
And the writers did a great job, I think, with that.
No, I do too. All series, they like obviously it's a focus point with she's a mother of dragons, but like you said, it was never over the top, just like nonstop, all about the dragons destroying things. Like honestly, this is the first. I don't know. I would say the first season where this is like a main like not the first season, but this is the most damage you've seen of Dragon do all series, and it took 8 seasons for it to happen.
Right, and I like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, no, this like you said, this episode had a lot of like when he stabbed her, I was like, I honestly thought she used her beauty and just seduced him. Because if I put myself in Jon Snow's position, I would have been like, all right, I'm with you. Whatever you want to do, I'm down. Let's do it. But
yeah, because I mean, he said, "You're my queen," and then starts kissing her, and I'm going, he really gave up that fast.
Yeah. And the part that like, which I know people definitely picked up on is I feel so bad that she never even she touched the throne. She never got to sit on the throne.
Yeah. You have to love the imagery there, though. You know, she hardly touches it, and then she turns around, and the whole fiasco with John happens. So it's almost like she became this close to becoming the true queen and sitting on the Iron Throne, and then Drogon destroys the throne, melts it down.
Yeah.
And Varys, I think it's Varys who said in a few seasons back that dragons could be smarter than humans. I mean, within the show. So obviously the Drogon took that as a sign of, okay, well, the throne was something that she wanted. She didn't get it. She died because of the throne. So I'm going to melt the throne.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just one thing that sucks though is that Cersei is the last person to sit on the throne. I wish it was somebody that I liked. Honestly, anybody else except Joffrey, anybody else, I just would have been happy as can be.
Anybody.
At least, yeah. Even Tyrion, if he just was like, I'm just going to rest here for a second. But
maybe not Ramsay. I hate Ramsay.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. Oh, Ramsay. I'm going to get into when we talk about least favorite parts of the series, that I'll bring up Ramsay.
Okay.
So what about, how do you feel, before we go on to like other parts, how do you feel about the final ending on who takes, not even the throne's gone, who's now sitting in, I guess we can say, the wheelchair of everything? How do you feel about Bran being the king?
Yeah, so how do I feel about Bran being the king? You know, Bran being the king when I first watched it, my initial reaction was, okay, I guess this makes sense. Like, Bran, he's the keeper of all the memories. He knew this was going to happen. You know, he could be a just ruler because he holds all things in consideration. And, you know, he's not biased, all of these sorts of things. And when I saw him obviously take the throne, I was like, okay, like Bran's on the throne. He knows all these things. Sure. But as I've separated from the episode, you know, read some opinions, thought about it myself, I'm kind of mad.
Yeah.
And I was fine with the ending until I started thinking more and more about it, because Bran said he wasn't Bran anymore. Yep. He said that he was a three-eyed raven. He said he didn't want to be the Lord of Winterfell. He said that, and then when he said at the end, why do you think I'm here? because he
Yeah,
knew all along that he was going to be king. Well, wouldn't he be complicit in burning millions of women and children in King's Landing? Because if he knew that was
exactly.
going to happen, it's like, dude, Bran must be the most evil character on the show. He knew all this was going to happen.
Yes.
Was the I've saw reactions. Was the Night King actually a good guy coming to kill Bran? Obviously, the Night King wouldn't have killed everybody, but
Yeah.
if you look at it in that context of Bran being evil, it just is like, ooh. And really, the show, what the show turned out to be with Bran being on the, I'm specifically talking about Bran being king, is this show was about the Stark family and the impact that Ned Stark, his legacy left on Game of Thrones, because Sansa took the North.
Hmm.
Jon was a bastard, so he just went back to wherever he went,
Yeah.
way back north. And Bran takes the throne, and Arya does what Arya does. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my take on Bran being on the throne.
Yeah. It was, I don't, I like, we were texting before and you said like, you sent me like the things of the guy predicting, which we pretty much ended up finding out it was a spoiler, but
Yeah, that was like a leak. I didn't know that. I thought it was just some guy being a genius predicting everything. I guess that must have been a straight up leak, because everything I sent you was spot on.
I know, but even when I read that too, and then I read the ending of Bran being king, I was like, damn, he had some really good predictions, but there's no way
Yeah,
this is happening. And I
right.
sent back to you, like, if Bran is king, I'm going to push him out of a window again.
Yeah,
Because I was just, you literally put someone as king who was out for an entire season. There was a season where he did not appear in a single episode. How do you do that? Like, wouldn't you think you'd build him up a little bit more? Like after he went into like the before he became the Three-Eyed Raven and he ran past those like weird creatures and everything, like the next season he wasn't in it at all.
right.
And that's weird to me that the person that you end up on the throne, just what he was out for a whole season. I don't know, it didn't make sense to me.
And if the premise is, because Tyrion said, who has a better story than Bran?
Yeah,
If the premise is somebody with a great story, because stories unite us all, that was their premise. That's a
yeah,
garbage. That's a garbage reason for Bran to be on the throne.
yeah,
Jon Snow was raised from the dead.
yeah.
He's literally Aegon Targaryen,
Yeah.
and he killed Daenerys. I mean, he's literally the rightful heir to the throne. Now that is a story.
Yeah,
Banished to the north,
yeah.
banished to the wall, went beyond the wall. It's
Or you,
just, that's
you
a
could
story.
you could name every Stark child before you name Bran. Like Sansa had to deal with Joffrey, had to deal with Ramsay, uh, all this stuff. Like she has an amazing story. Arya can change faces. That's a
Like,
cool king or
yeah,
queen, I mean. But like, there's Bran. Bran has the worst. Like, there's so many times where he talks where I'm like, why does he even have lines? Just have him sit there and look at people. It's just so annoying.
right. And so many times throughout the show, Bran would appear and you'd be like, okay, like Bran's just there. Like, why is Bran there?
Yeah.
And when not Euron Greyjoy, when Theon Greyjoy took Winterfell like a few
Mhm.
seasons back,
Yeah.
and Bran's just sitting in his wheelchair doing nothing, and it's like Bran's helpless; he can't do anything.
Yeah.
And especially the Battle of Winterfell, Bran didn't warg into anything significantly. He was a raven, but what was Bran doing the entire time? He could have warged into like a dragon or something.
Yeah.
Jon Snow could have been on the ground. Bran could have been flying around Drogon and melting some Nightwalkers. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
And he even hinted that like he could do that in the last episode where they asked like if any news on the dragon, and then he was like, well, maybe I can find him, and they wheeled them away. And in my
Yeah,
head too, I was like, why didn't you just do this stuff earlier?
right.
Like, do something. You just even when the Night King, he just sat there calmly, which makes sense now because he knew he was gonna die and whatever. But I was still, I don't know, it just pissed me off. And did you see the meme on Twitter where it was Hordor and he was like, I held the door for this shit? I was
Yeah, no, I
dying.
didn't see that. But that's funny though.
I was cracking up. I was like, that's a good point. I'd be pissed off if I did all this and then yeah. All right, so we had if you had to give it just real quick before we move on to the series as a whole, if you had to give the last season a rating, you can choose if you want to do since we're both teachers, if you want to do the ABC scale. Let's just do that. We'll go to our teacher roots. If
Yeah.
you had to give it a final grade, what would you give it? Final season.
You know, this last season, it was fun. It was the CGI was nothing like I'd ever seen in any other show. You know, what they did with all the computerized stuff was great. All the shots were amazing. The cinematography was unreal. All of those things were honestly a 10. You know, watching Drogon burn down King's Landing,
Mhm.
all of that stuff was just unreal watching that.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a 10. But if you're talking about the plot, uh, first, it was too fast. It just went way too fast. I wanted more dialogue, important conversations.
Hmm.
But I'd have to give it like a 6.5 to a 7.
Yeah.
I think if the plot was more stretched out, if there was more time between the Battle of Winterfell and the Battle of King's Landing, that would have been great. You know, I wanted more answers towards the last episode, like Jon Snow in captivity, and Grey Worm escorted Tyrion, but where was the Dothraki? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just a little questions, and we'll get to that I think in a little bit. But yeah, I give it about a 7.5, 6. And I'd say about 7 for the plot. How about you?
I was saying the same thing, and like just with like expectations, it's never with a show like this. You go to all the other great shows, like you're never gonna get a 10. Expectations will always outdo what actually happens. Um, so that's just like they start it. There's no chance they can get a 10. I'm with you. I'd probably give it like a 7. It was rushed. So the episodes, like the action packed ones, the Battle of Winterfell, the final one with the Mad Queen, like those are crazy episodes. Even the last episode has its good moments. But the build up episodes, I felt like I don't know. It just would have been those would have been whole seasons just building up to those big key episodes. So rather than the first 2 episodes, then you have Battle of Winterfell, one episode, the Mad Queen, and then the final one. It was too rushed. So I can't really give it above a 7. So I'm with you on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So by 7, I meant like 70, 75%. So a C, if you want to
Yeah,
go off teacher metrics. It was about a C.
yeah,
With the plot. I mean, it got the job done, but the plot was too fast.
yeah. No, exactly. All right, so we mentioned stuff we loved about it, stuff we hated. So what are some things that you wish they did during that final season, or questions that you wish they answered?
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
Why did Bran become the three-eyed raven? You know, stuff like that. What was the significance of Jon being Aegon Targaryen? Because if he's the true heir to the throne, theoretically he should be on the throne. Because Dany's dead, he has no outside threats. He should be on the throne, regardless of what the Unsullied says. Sure,
yeah,
the Unsullied may have, and the thing is, they didn't even tell us that the Unsullied had control, like military power per se.
yeah,
If Dany died and then they told us that the Unsullied controlled all of the military power in King's Landing, therefore Jon couldn't be king, I would understand that. They
mhm,
kind of just assumed that we would assume that, okay, Unsullied, large army, they have military power, they'll decide who's king, otherwise they'll kill Jon, stuff like that.
Going off,
So
hate to
yeah,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off. Going off Jon Snow real quick with that. One thing that surprised me too is I'm horrible with names. So that guy that had the little eye patch that always kept being raised from the dead.
Yeah, the Lord of Light guy. I can't remember his name either, but I know who you're
Yeah.
talking about.
So he gets always raised from the dead, and then in that Battle of Winterfell, he finally serves his purpose. So he ends up actually like dying, not being raised again. So like with Jon Snow, did he meet his purpose, or now, or does he have more to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think he met his purpose. They kind of pushed him away as like a secondary character in that last season.
Yeah, that's what I didn't get. I was like, so he got raised from the dead to kill the queen, but he's still alive, so there must be more things for him to do. So that's the part that I was like, that doesn't really make sense to me. You would think, like, if he got raised from the dead, just like that other guy, once he served his purpose for saving Arya, like he died. So, like,
Right,
if Jon Snow killed the queen, now I don't know. That's the question I still have too.
right. And so there's that. You know, as far as other questions, why did Dany go mad? Sure, you know, she's related to the Mad King, but there was nothing that told us that A, she would go mad, or B, if she would go mad, why? What would piss her off?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the bells were ringing. The army in King's Landing had their spears down, and there was every indicator that she was going to take the throne right then, right there. But why did she all of a sudden just get up and start burning everybody? That's really one of my big questions. And it would make sense if there was really a bigger lead up to her going mad, because in the episode before, she killed Varys
Mhm.
because she didn't like him essentially.
Yeah.
And that's tyranny. And that was a small, I would like medium-sized indicator of what was going to happen in the next episode. So there's a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, how about you?
Um, well, going off that, like Jon Snow, he's a handsome devil. He turned her down. Love makes you do crazy things. I blame him, honestly. It was probably his fault.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's that. I think honestly, though, like her seeing that Jon is kind of like separating himself from her. I think she gets to King's Landing and sees like this was taken from me. I'm just gonna destroy it. And
right.
then there was that Bran had that vision. I think I read in like season 4. Where is that test that one dragon just flying around King's Landing and just destroying it? So
Yeah.
um I think they had to do it too just to fulfill that. But I think, like we've mentioned before, if they were able to do more seasons, I think it would have been more explained better on what made her snap. On a on a lighter note, one thing I honestly wish they did, and you're better with names than me. That bearded wildling, I love this man.
Tormund.
Yes, I wish he would have got to hook up with
Brienne.
Brienne, yeah. Like I wish he would have, because he wanted to for so long. And I don't know. He tried so hard. I just wish he would have been able to. I don't feel too bad for him because after Jamie kind of cut him off, he did get to go with another woman, so good for him. But at the same time, I was like, he tried so hard for her. I wish they would have made just an adorable redheaded bearded baby, honestly.
That would have been great.
Um so there's that I wish would have happened. Um, I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. I don't know. I just wish it would have ended honestly a little bit differently. I just wish any other Stark besides Bran would have been the ruler. One thing I am happy about when Sam stood up and went over the whole like democracy thing. I was so nervous that's what they were gonna do. I was like, please don't do this. Is this going to be a nod to like democracy in America? Please don't do this right now. Like, don't bring this show back to American politics. So thank God they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing is I complain about stuff, but I don't really have much else that I would have done differently. I'm not a TV writer, so I can't really give them too much stuff other than I don't know, maybe having like a final story for Jon Snow. Like for me, I think it would have been better if Jon killed Daenerys and then honestly he died too. Because then it showed like, oh, we brought him back for this. Like it showed his
Right.
purpose.
That was his purpose.
Yeah. I think that would have been for me, I kind of wish they would have done that.
No, I totally agree. And the way it ended, it was just 8 seasons to build up for the final episode. And they come up with Bran. And they could have explained why Bran was supposed to be the king. Like other than a story, I mean, you could say the main reason why Bran was supposed to be the king is because he was the holder of all memories.
Yeah.
And it's just like Tyrion literally said, nobody has a better story than Bran.
Yeah.
It's like, and the thing that's pretty telling to me is Bran. I don't know if you saw this, but Bran, or I think Isaac is his real name. He came on and said when he first saw that script, he thought it was a joke. He didn't actually believe. He was like, "Are you bleeping kidding me? Like this is actually happening?" He thought it was a joke. He couldn't believe he was actually going to be king. So I mean, when you see an actor like say something like that, the writers probably screwed up a little.
Yeah. Did you see that take? I watched that thing where it was like 3 minutes of Game of Thrones actors like like faking excitement for the final season, and it was Amelia Clark. They asked her like, "Oh, how do you like the last season?" And she did this like super forced, awkward smile. I was like, "Oh, it's the best season ever!" Like
Oh
you
my
could
gosh.
tell, like I was dying. I was like, "Oh my god!"
I'm
Like
gonna go
she
find that.
hates
That's
it.
funny.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, like obviously, people have been reading Twitter. They know the reactions to the final season, but if we take that away, like Game of Thrones is for sure for me like top show ever. If not, if something beats it out, I don't know what is. Maybe Rugrats from when I was little, but like it. No, Game of Thrones is like the best show. So I want to go over really quick just the whole series. Like what are some favorite moments, least favorite moments, or most? Let's take out least favorite moments. We kind of we said our least favorite things with the final season. Let's go ahead and end on a positive note. What are your favorite moments or most surprising moments for the whole series?
Oh, the whole series or the last season?
Let's do. I know this is putting you on a spot, but let's do whole series.
Oh man, that is a loaded question. Loaded. And that could go any which way.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, there's so many moments where I just went, "Oh my gosh, like this is actually happening." Um my favorite moment.
I feel
You
like
go
we're
first.
yeah. I was gonna say I put you on the spot. I realized that I was doing this. I was like, oh crap, I'm on the outline. I put a whole season. I should have
Yeah.
put a whole series. So for me, I'm gonna jump to most surprising, and this goes literally to the first episode because my buddy Rixie, he was like, Jimmy, dude, you gotta watch this series. Like I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. So I'm laying in bed. I'm like, all right, let me watch it. So I turn it on, and all of a sudden I see this like zombie thing, and I text him, was like, "What are you making me watch?" I was like, "I already watched The Walking Dead. I don't need another zombie show." And he was like, "Just watch it." I was like, "All right, man." So I start watching it, and it's super good. And then all of a sudden you get to the end, and Jamie is having sex with his sister. I was like, "Rixie, what are you making me watch right now?" Like that just
Yeah.
I had no forewarning of anything. And all of a sudden there's incest in a TV show. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
But so that was a surprise. Another one for me was when Theon was he was Ramsay's captive, and he has that moment where he escapes, and you're like, oh, thank God he got away from that crazy person. And he's escaping, and all suddenly it's just Bolt and the rest right there, like, oh yeah, I made I just wanted you to think you're getting away. I was really here the whole time. I was like, oh damn. Like that part, I was like, I did not like I really thought Theon was escaping. I did not think this was a whole plot set up by Ramsay.
Yeah.
So that was a really surprising moment for me. Obviously, Red Wedding's a big one. What about you? Surprising favorite? You have any?
Okay, so I do have a favorite.
Yeah,
And it's kind of a unique uh I wouldn't say a favorite, but for sure one of my favorite moments. And it was when Jon Snow went beyond the wall,
yeah.
and he was fighting and trying to hold off the Night King. So it was the Battle of Hardhome, and that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of the first time we as an audience like really saw, um, excuse me, where we really saw the Night King and his interaction with the characters.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, they're fighting, and all of a sudden, John and everybody tries to get back to the boats, and then the Night King raises his hands, and everybody who died comes back to life, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. They join the army of the dead,
Yeah.
and it was at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like the plot for the story is unbelievable. Like I can't is just so much tension. It was great. And so my most surprising moments, um, when Ned Stark died, that was a huge because I was like, he was like the best character ever at the time.
Yeah.
It was so shocking to see Ned Stark die. Obviously, the Red Wedding, that was pretty much in everybody's playbook for the most surprising. Um, and then when Danny went mad, really towards the end,
Yeah.
that was I did not see that coming. I really didn't.
And you have to bring like too when you brought up when the Night King like raised everybody from the dead, and then
Yeah,
later on, I believe it's the same episode. They sent all the people down into the water to get the dragon, and he turned the dragon into a Nightwalker.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh damn, like how it was when you brought up Ned Stark, one thing I try to get my wife to watch Game of Thrones. And she watched the first couple episodes. Obviously, we all know there's a lot of sex in it. Whenever she watches TV, our daughter's on her lap, and she's only 8 months, and she's like, "We can't. No, this is too much. This is too much." I was like, "That's a fair point." So I was like, "Just give it the first season." I was like, "Someone really big dies. You're not gonna see it coming."
Yeah.
we get to it, and Daenerys' brother, they kill him, and she looked at me. She goes, "This is the main character that dies? I did not see that coming." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you think this is the big death?" I was like, "Just wait like 2 episodes." And my wife never swears ever. And right when Ned Stark got killed, I just hear, "Oh, are you effing kidding me?" I was like, "Oh wow." I was like, "I've never seen him this shocked in my life."
Yeah. That's
Like,
great.
yeah. I was like, that was, I wish I would have captured that on video, because that's the best thing about this show is you honestly, unless you read the books, like you really didn't know what was going to happen. And I didn't, for me, I read Harry Potter. That's about the only series I read. Like I did not know anything that was coming, and just watching this and seeing how like so many twists and turns came. Like this is a show that honestly, unlike any other show, kept me on the edge of my seat, where I truly did not know what was going to happen. And that was the best thing. Even though I maybe remember 6 characters' names because there were so many, like I still was super invested in the show.
Yeah, I was too. And well, yeah, what was so great about the show is that your new favorite main character at the time could die at any moment.
Yep.
And like Ned Stark and Ramsay Bolton, Rickon Stark, all these characters that died. And Ramsay Bolton was not my favorite character.
Yeah, I was gonna say
but,
you're a creep, but
yeah, no. But like it was just the surprise, and
yeah,
it was Arya wearing somebody else's face,
yes,
and it was Cersei just killing people left and right just because she could,
yeah,
and you never knew who she was going to claim next. It was Cersei blowing up the Sept of the Seven with all of that green juice or gas or whatever that was, that
yeah,
potiony stuff.
yeah,
And it was all of those things that cut and just bottled up.
mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, like I never know what's going to happen next. Like I never know. It was in the first season. Daenerys walked into the fire because her call died, and then all of a sudden the fire burns out, and she's got a dragon on her back, and you're
Yeah,
going, holy bleep! Like this is unreal. She just survived the fire. She's naked and she's got dragons on her back. Like that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And it was all of those moments that really we all had expectations for season 8, and I feel like we never really got that moment until the Battle of Winterfell when Arya Stark stabbed the Night King. And I was waiting for Arya Stark to use her face stuff, her shape shifting,
yeah,
to get somebody else and use that advantage for herself. I was waiting for that. I was, you know, I was waiting for Jon Snow to really claim the throne as his own because he was
mm-hmm.
Aegon Targaryen. All these people had different abilities that they could that was built up and throughout the seasons, and it really kind of just flopped in the last season, and it really kind of made me mad
Yeah,
because I was waiting for it, and it was just
yeah,
kind of heartbreaking.
yeah. No, for sure. But then that kind of goes to just how the show is, though. Like it builds it up that, oh, Jon Snow, like look, he starts off as the bastard, and all of a sudden, like, oh, he is the rightful heir. And then that's what you expect. And then again, just twist it like, oh, the last person you expect to be on the throne's on the throne. Like that just kind of goes to what it is. Like this show just, you can't predict it. It's
Right.
it's always something else that you don't see coming. But yeah, no, it was a hell of a ride for sure. I wasn't 10 years invested like some people, but it or 3 weeks invested like TJ Lang, but
Yeah.
this series was amazing.
Sorry, one more thing.
No,
I can't
absolutely.
imagine how the people feel who actually watch the show for 10 years.
Yeah.
If religiously for 10 years, you start in episode 1, and you watch for 10 whole years, and
And
then you're
people
left
that
with that.
even read the books before that too.
Right. And you're
Yeah.
left with that. Oh, that has to hurt.
Oh, absolutely. I wonder though, like if I don't know the writer's name. I read it and I know who it is, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But if for like the next book that comes out, I wonder if he's just gonna have a totally different ending. Like that'd be interesting to see. Like this show went in one direction, but his books are gonna go in a completely different. Because
Right.
he sees the people's reactions where he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore, and he changes it.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, it's George R. Martin
There it is. Yeah, yeah.
who wrote it, and the directors for Game of Thrones are now going to go do Star Wars, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. Those it's tough as writers because they get scrutinized so much. Like we see right now, like you have so many good seasons and just one final season, just people don't want it to end, such high expectations, and they just get dragged through the fire of just people just pissed off about what they did. So I wonder if I'm sure this is going to lower expectation of Star Wars, which is a bummer. But I know people are going to be like, they're going to go in with a negative mind, like, oh, these are the writers of the final season of Game of Thrones. They're probably going to mess this up.
Right.
But so last thing before we end it, who's one character that you're very happy that survived the series?
Survive the series? Oh
Yeah.
man. It has to be a Stark,
Yeah.
and I would. It's a tough because I really liked Jon,
Mm-hmm.
and I really liked Sansa, and I really liked Arya, and I'm really focusing on the Starks because really that's what the show is about. It's about the Starks. Um, okay, I'm happy that Jon made it all the way through, but
Yeah.
I'm not happy that he didn't take the throne. I thought it should have been him who took the throne, not Bran.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go with Jon. How about you?
Oh man, this is this is stupid because you already told me his name and he's the person I'm happy survived, but I can't. It starts with a T.
Tormund.
Tormund. I'm so happy Tormund survived. I like him so much, just because of the whole sucking from the teat of a giant. Like that made
Yeah,
me love him
just
more.
survive like what?
His beard is amazing. Like
I know.
I was so happy he survived. All right, I swear this question just popped in my mind. Who are you happier to see die, Littlefinger or Ramsay?
Ramsay.
Yeah,
Ramsay.
I thought Ramsay, and then I was like, I really hate Littlefinger. Like I wanted him to die since season 1, so
Yeah.
I was super pumped when I saw Littlefinger die. I think I'd have to go with him actually.
Yeah, I just hate that Ramsay Bolton like brutally raped Sansa and all that trash, like all that.
Yeah,
And seeing him die was for sure satisfying for me. And he was my favorite death. Like I wanted him to die more than Joffrey.
yeah. See, that's the thing with after Joffrey died. Like once I got to the battle, to the Battle of the Bastards and everything.
Yeah.
I guess I expected he became so evil that I thought, like, I assumed he would die, but I honestly didn't know if Littlefinger was going to die or not. So when he ended up dying, that's why I was like, thank God he finally died. Whereas Ramsay, like, I kind of assumed he was such like a shitty person that I was like, he's going to eventually die. But
Right.
Littlefinger, I just didn't know. Like, there was a part of me that just in the back of my mind, because he was so open about he wanted to end up on the throne that I was like, is this going to be some twisted Littlefinger series where somehow he ends up ruining everybody?
Right.
But, all right, man. No, I appreciate you coming on. I know this is a lot different than the Lambeau Lead, which I'm on with you, which is a great football podcast. It's a little more laid back, but no, I appreciate you. You guys with Cream City do a lot of great things. So I'm glad to have you on. Anytime you want to come on, let me know. We'd love to have you back on.
Dude, thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure. It was great talking about something on a podcast other than football and sports. It was fun to talk about Game of Thrones for sure. No, this was great. And you have to love Game of Thrones. It's for sure worthy of a podcast. Excuse me. It's for sure worthy of a podcast. And the thing is, it's a great story. Like Tyrion said, it's a great story.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I don't know if a show will ever match the hype.
Yeah, I don't like I don't know, it's one of those things like people, I feel bad for the people down the road where people are going to, obviously we're going to build this show up so much that I wonder if eventually it's going to get to the point where the hype is so good or like so high that when people watch it, they're a little disappointed. But I don't know, because even when it was hyped up when I started watching it, and it beat my expectations. So
Right.
I don't know. It's a show that's going to be, people are going to watch this honestly forever. And if people ever remake this show, I will freak out, and I don't know what's going to happen. Someone's going to get punched probably.
Probably. All right. Thanks, Jimmy, for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.